You called me. So here I am.
I see that look in your eyes.
Things change when you become director.
Makes me go blind.
Something's coming.
Deep
Something
secrets
unbelievable.
and lies.
Unknowable.
Storm in the quiet.
Chaos of biblical proportions.
Hello everyone and welcome back to our weekly live stream series. I'm Scott Lowe, Senior Communications Manager here at Naughty Dog, and we are streaming Control today, as you may have noticed from the trailer we just saw. If you're tuning in for the very first time for our weekly series, we do this every Wednesday, generally around 11 a.m. We play our own games, other games from around the studio from our friends and other developers, as well as some classic games. And we do it every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Twitch and YouTube. If you want to join the conversation, please jump onto Twitch and join the chat. You can also submit questions via an extension at the bottom of the player, and we'll try our best to answer them as we go. And then you can stream whatever we're broadcasting at 4K in 60 frames per second on YouTube. So if you want the pristine experience, but if you want to chat, you got to be on Twitch. Just a quick reminder, we have a special live stream coming up on the 19th. We'll be supporting the Sony Foundation Australia for raising funds for a number of great causes that support the people impacted by the brush fires that occurred in the last couple of months. So we're really excited about that. We have some exciting plans that we have to share in the next week or so, so stay tuned for updates on that. And of course, like and subscribe to get notified whenever we go live. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping notes. One thing that we know has come up quite a bit in the chat that we wanted to quickly address is questions about Uncharted multiplayer, but for Uncharted 4 and Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. We have no planned content to be added to those games currently. We will only really be looking out for any sort of maintenance level stuff. But we appreciate all the passion that the community has and all the questions you've been asking over the last couple of weeks. So we just wanted to clear that up for anybody who was still wondering. But thank you so much for all your questions and support over the years. But again, the topic at hand today is Control. It's one of our favorite games of the last year from our dear friends at Remedy, and shout out to them for supporting the stream by sending us a code as well as sharing it with their social media platforms and stuff. So without further ado, please let me introduce our guest for this week. We've got Felix, Kat, and Waylon. Welcome, everyone, for I think our fourth stream of the year. So we're keeping it going. And we're all pretty big fans of Control. So
I'm not.
I couldn't tell. You just pulled
take
that.
it or leave it.
So similar to our Death Stranding stream where John Sweeney brought his Sam Porter Bridges hat, you seem to have come dressed for the occasion.
Yeah, I procured this somewhere.
Did you make that yourself?
Oh yeah.
It's hand embroidered.
Oh, #1 Control super fan here. I just went with needle and thread.
So before we get into the gameplay, and I think we're gonna swap the controller back and forth as we play. A quick note: we are playing New Game Plus, so there may be some spoilers that come in. But our hope was by playing New Game Plus, a lot of the cutscenes and story details that would have spoiled you otherwise will be exempt. But we'll have to see it as we go. And yeah, we'll just explore the world. But before we get into that, Felix, do you want to kick off and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do at the studio?
Yeah, I'm Felix. I am a game designer here at Naughty Dog. I've been here for 4 years now. Wow, that's a lot of time. Started on Uncharted 4, went over to Lost Legacy, and now I'm working on Last of Us Part 2.
I've heard of that game.
It's a kind of an obscure title. Who knows? Yeah.
It's not everywhere around us in the moment. Like
No, I know. I'm looking at Control right now.
Yeah.
Man. That's what I'm saying.
Cool. And then Kat, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Kat. I'm QA here. I'm the combat lead. So I started on Lost Legacy, and then went to another studio for a bit, and came back for Last of Us Part 2 as well.
Awesome.
So.
And then Waylon.
Hey, I'm Waylon. I'm the technical art director here at Naughty Dog, which is like a little bit of helping artists to work as efficiently as possible, but also make the game look as amazing as it can from a rendering standpoint, and well, a lot of rendering, but like putting that nice little bit of shine and high-tech goodness onto the game. And I joined Naughty Dog 1 week before The Last of Us Part 1 went Gold Master. And it was really weird because I heard
Auspicious.
all about how intense the studio is, and I come in and like everybody's like relaxed and on vacation.
chill, yeah.
There's like 5 programmers who are freaking out and everybody else is just playing the game. I was like, am I in the right place? But yeah, so about 6-ish years, I guess I've been here now.
Yeah, I actually looked it up. You're coming up on 7 almost.
Okay, well,
so
all right.
so yeah, time is flying by.
I guess so.
And you're our first technical art director on the stream so far, so we'll have a lot of questions for you about like the nitty-gritty of what that job entails. And I thought it would be particularly fitting for this game, given that its Control is a pretty strong merger of tech and art at the same time in the way the levels evolve.
You might have to tell me to shut up if I'm nerding out too much. But
I will never tell you to shut up. Just keep it coming.
if anybody has any questions about like rendering or anything like that, definitely post them on the stream, and I'll try to make it as non-book-like as possible in my answers.
Am I allowed to take notes?
Yeah, right? So who wants to kick off with the gameplay? Who wants to play first?
1, 2, 3, not it.
I can't do it. I'm hosting.
I
so.
know.
Go for it.
Now, Kat, I think this is actually pretty fitting because you platinumed the game.
I have, yes.
So you might know a few things about it that the three of us may not.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. It's actually, I mean, for anybody who's interested, it's a fairly simple plat. There's not a whole, I didn't have to do a whole lot of like trophy cleanup afterwards.
Now, are you historically a platinum like chaser? Like, do you hunt those trophies on
Actually,
every
I
game?
was not until I started here. Until I started on Lost Legacy. because when we're QA, we have to make sure that you can get your platinums. So we had to play through the game and platinum it like
to make sure it's achievable, basically.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Like every other day, basically. I think was the I think the platinum for Lost Legacy is like 6 hours or 7 hours or something like that. So, yeah. So I just got very into that.
QA has like a guide to how to platinum the game as fast as possible.
Yes.
Right?
Can I
Yes.
get that? That'd be great. I think I'm very close.
Yeah.
That's actually an interesting question because I'm sure a lot of people wonder, like, and I guess it varies by studio, like how trophies are determined and mapped out. Based on my observations, it seems like a very communal effort. Everybody kind of gets an opportunity to like throw out ideas for what it could be. But as far as how it evolves from a QA perspective, like how do those things get like kind of refined and like trimmed down and like made sure that they're accessible?
Well, I know that I wasn't here for Uncharted, but I know there is a speedrun trophy for that one. And I think that was literally just we had our speedrunner QA just go through the game, and as fast as he got it, that was pretty much like give it like an hour or so from that, and that was the trophy.
Several hours.
Yeah. Really? You think so?
Several hours. Yeah. The speedrunning trophy in Uncharted 4
he's
is
a pro.
not that crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually haven't done that one yet. That's on my list.
All right, so like I said, this is New Game Plus. There are certain to be areas that we haven't totally explored, but we'll do our best to avoid anything super spoilery. We've got our sweatpants on, so, function over form.
I personally want to try to find my favorite outfit. I know you have a different favorite outfit. I don't know if we want to try to find those at all. But
Let's do the cool outfit.
wait, which one's the cool outfit?
It's your outfit.
Oh yes. Okay. All right. I actually
I love.
don't.
I think
love
sweatpants
this
are pretty
area
cool.
so
I don't
much.
know.
The sweatpants.
Felix actually came dressed in the sweatpants, but we made him change.
Yeah. You had to go along with the hat.
It told me off. I was like not professional enough.
So
Vacillating on whether to like get this game or not. I highly recommend it. It's like got such a great sense of location and sort of theme. You can imagine if anyone's familiar with like the SCP series. You guys know that?
Yeah.
So
very
SCP is
SCP.
kind of yeah. So SCP is like this sort of like online fictional universe of like these like kind of forbidden objects that have like these like paranormal attributes. And so this game I think took probably like maybe a bit more than a page out of that book, along with like X-Files and like other sort of like weird shadowy government agency doing like paranormal stuff in the world kind of themes, and just packed it into a game and mixed it with like their awesome like powers from Quantum Break, plus like their experience with like creating like these very narrative intensive games, starting all the way back from like Max Payne.
Yeah.
And then like mashing them into like these brutalist, amazing environments. So yeah, I'm very effusive in my like for like this particular game.
Well, and Remedy is just like an awesome studio, and they've like
we
been
got guys
great friends to Naughty Dog. They actually right before this came out, they came by the studio and gave us a chance to like play with it and like see what they were working on, and it's just I don't know what they're able to accomplish for this game and like how beautiful it is. Like it's so impressive.
This is like an incredible technical achievement.
Yeah.
This particular game and how the rendering is and like
Everything
how
that's on
smoothly it
screen right
plays.
now. Like it's like years and years and years, because it's all systemic. Everywhere you go in the entire game, everything that Cat is doing right now, you can do in literally any room in the entire game, and it all just works. It never feels buggy. Just super, super solid.
Well, and the destruction too, like of the environment itself, like you can take chunks off the wall, and it doesn't seem like it's very constrained. It feels all very organic, which I really appreciate.
And it takes a lot of discipline for a studio to stick to this, because it's so common to be like, oh, I have this one set piece, or I have this room that I just want to make look beautiful, but it would be so hard to make it work with all the destruction. And they really stuck to their guns and made it just completely consistent throughout. While still managing a whole bunch of different looks and like different theming for every level.
The destructibility is just such a central pillar to like how fun this game is that like, yeah, it probably is just like one of the core sort of priorities they had in making this.
Well, to that end, there was actually a question that was just submitted, Waylon, and I guess for the whole group, which is like, being the one responsible kind of, making the art to tech process as efficient as possible, at which point do you decide to limit how much control, pun intended, or artistic freedom is available for the environment before it is translated to an in-game build? How do you find the correct balance?
It's a little bit different for every studio. I would say so in a more linear game like we do here at Naughty Dog, we kind of let the designer or whatever it is that the space requires, we let that be the key. That's the thing that we strive for. So whether it's, spoilers from previous games, a burning chateau, like that's all about the burning chateau, and we put all of our budget into making that look amazing. Or, the crowded marketplace from Lost Legacy, that's all about the characters and how busy this space is. And we put all of our budget into whatever it is that makes the space, and then everything else gets shoved to the side. Like, we turn off rendering features, we make the background super low poly, and you just don't notice it because you're staring at whatever it is that's in front of your face. I think Control throughout is all about the destruction, and but even more than that, like the style of the lighting, the almost like ray trace nature that they're able to achieve, like the reflection of the door on the floor, and anytime any of the crazy particles go off, you see all of that reflecting in every surface, and that's key to their aesthetic. So they've made some other trade-offs, like there's no jungle level in Control because foliage is crazy expensive. So they've developed this style that is these really, I think somebody else said brutalist environments, or depending which space you're talking about, but like the entire style of the architecture of every space is based on the limitations of the engine, which, this is, before you start destroying things, this is about on par with Portal, maybe, or a little bit more detailed than a game like that.
In terms of like how complex the geo is.
Yeah, like if this wasn't destructible, this could be running at like 120 frames a second on PS4.
Right.
But they had to essentially design the environments to be that simple to make room for, well, when the magic starts happening, when the combat kicks in.
Yeah, and I think you kind of nailed it where it's like initially where you're saying like it really kind of varies by studio and the needs of the project. Like, you know, it depends on what your priority is, I would imagine. The floating characters in this game they're like my favorite part. Like that was the most striking thing about the like original like reveal trailers. I was just like, it's not a horror game, but it just definitely gives you like immediate kind of like.
I think it's Ritual Division.
Is it?
Yeah, it's Ritual Division.
Oh, it's the question
It's one of
marks
the
there.
side, yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually something I really like from a non-tech standpoint. I love, like, they've balanced everything just perfectly. The combat, the world, the audio, this sort of tone of, like, it is a dark world, there is bad stuff going on. It's kind of this, like, somber grimness, but then they have this dark humor that keeps it from feeling too flat.
One of the funniest games.
And I love,
year, like, bar none.
like every
Weirdly
time
enough.
you see like somebody talking on a projector or something, and
Yeah.
it sounds like your science teacher talking, but then when you really listen in, and it's just this like biting irony to everything they say.
Yeah.
Oh god.
And the titles.
My aesthetic is like literally big letters covering a screen.
Yeah.
Like that's like I love seeing that in every single piece of media. So if you make any TV shows or movies or games out there, know that you have a fan out there. If you're a typography expert and you're just like, I love these big letters, geometric font, then like
that's Felix.
I am the guy you're making that for.
I'm assuming you're a big fan of the Watchmen show then.
Yes.
Because every episode opens with
Watchmen. What's the one show about the serial killers on Netflix? They do the same thing.
Mindhunter.
Mindhunter.
Yeah.
There's a bit from Beyond the Black Rainbow that just had like the year just as a thing, and I was like, oh yeah, so good.
What if it's in the space though? Like Zombieland did that.
Oh, where it's
Is
like
that
like
bad or is that good?
I think it's kind of a gimmick.
Wow, strong
Typography is
feeling.
not a toy.
Yeah, man. Like if you're making something where like if you're focusing on typography, which is like form of like these letters and this type, like it's not a physicalized object. It's this graphic element that should like just kind of exist in its own space versus like here's some 3ds Max letters floating in the background. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
It's a hot take, I know.
Well, it was funny because like I saw like some of the early trailers for this, and I saw those big bold letters, and I was like, oh, that's a really cool choice for like a marketing asset. And then I like realized that it was actually in game, and like that was like how they introduce every new level that you enter.
Heck yes.
Yeah, and I was like, yes, I'm all about it. All right, now what are we looking for here?
Okay, so
Kat's been like silently like working as we've been gushing about typeface.
I've been silently attempting to reach this lab. So we have to solve kind of a little puzzle to get into this room. So there's a mirror in here, and basically there's 2 cameras that are pointing at the mirror, and then the mirror is showing like not what it sees, but an alternate dimension that is the solution to the puzzle. So
I guess for anybody who's watching who may not have not played or be totally aware of Control, the premise of the game is that you are this character who is drawn to what is called the Federal Bureau of Control, and their entire purpose is to kind of study and regulate the kind of intersection of multiple dimensions, which is like such an awesome premise for a game. And that's why the building you're in has these kind of interdimensional links. You're at basically a vortex of where that energy intersects. So throughout the game, there are a series of like really mind-bending level shifts where like the entire environment changes, and really cool puzzles like this where like you have to use the environment and the intersecting dimensions to solve puzzles and access new areas and find really cool outfits.
This is also like an
key
example
point.
of This is also an example. Like so, this mirror is an altered. I think in the game they call them altered items. So it's an example of this like singular paranormal object that has these properties that like do like just basically incredibly weird stuff that's also really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they range, like, you know, a lot of them are really mundane, like kind of like
Pretty much
everyday
most of them are mundane.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh man.
The rubber duck.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's a pretty
rubber
creepy
duck,
mirror.
the
So
fridge.
Fridge. Oh,
And there's like
the
a
fridge.
backstory to all of it,
Yeah.
which often is told through like picking up notes that you read and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's almost like every single one of these has an X-Files style story behind, like how did it first come into being, how did it affect everybody it touched, and then how did the Bureau come to be in possession of the object.
Yeah.
And it's just the whole game is so rich with this backstory, like moment by moment. I love that kind of embedded storytelling.
Yeah.
All the way back to like System Shock and games like that, where you're just like picking up these notes, and that's how you learn about the world.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
classic immersive sim sort of
Yeah.
technique of like just leave materials in the world for you to like read and like explore at your own leisure.
Yeah, it like enriches the story in the world, but it's not required, which is great. And one of the most commonly talked about examples of that from this game is the nod to Alan Wake with the inclusion of the.
Well, spoilers.
Sorry. Well, to be fair, they have announced that there is going to be like an Alan Wake tie-in expansion. So I feel like we're good to touch on that a little bit.
I did not get it.
Oh no.
Yeah. I think.
So the objective of this puzzle is
To get an outfit, right?
Yes, to get that.
That's the end goal, but you have
We're going
to
shopping.
shift the elevators around. It looks like, or the lift.
So from the screens you can tell sort of like in the alternate dimension what in the mirror dimension, sort of the classic Star Trek like evil mirror dimension.
What do these shutters do?
There's an arrangement to the shutters that matches the other world, and if you match them to
Your
that,
way to lock something up.
then you can access the inner chamber, access the mirror, and then go to this awesome mirror dimension. So yeah, so Kat's just done it.
Ta-da! Mirrors are hard.
They do a really clever thing when they so there's a recording in the back of the room that sounds very odd.
Yeah, I don't know if we can listen to it again, but
I think you picked it up already. Yeah.
yeah, I did pick
there
it up,
is.
but I think we can. I think any of the like.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So you can hear this sort of like in-universe explanation of like, oh, there's this thing that happened. Here's my like recording of it.
Can you describe your
And it's like-
experience inside Agent
yeah.
Hundy?
Unintelligible speech. So it's like there's something weird about it, right?
Right.
And so if you progress in the game and go through the mirror, you kind of find out what's going on there.
Come back clean. Yet the speech issue has persisted for hours.
Yeah, I do love, particularly kind of creating that atmosphere of like kind of
Calm down.
slight horror vibes. There's like slight supernatural vibes, like the use of kind of like
I love
obscure dialogue and kind of morphing techniques is like so critical to kind of creating the vibe of this game.
Yeah.
Like whenever you talk to the board over the telephone.
Oh,
like,
the
yeah.
board. Yes. Your pyramid dad.
Now you are in the mirror dimension.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, if you guys remember where we were before, this is entirely reversed.
Yes. It's a world much like ours except blue.
Yeah. Yes.
But also everything's mirrored. So that door was on the left side before.
Now this
And so
is-
now when you listen to
Goes reverse. Like playing a record back.
Yep.
yeah. And then the dude who had the unintelligible speech
Yeah,
in
he
the other
talks
recording,
What?
That's awesome.
it's like really great. In fact, if you go to your the mission display in the menu too, there's like in the missions, yeah. I think at one point it showed up like it was like the text was backwards on the UI.
Oh.
I love that
If you didn't
commitment.
catch it in the
Yeah.
lower right corner, then like yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Oh
worry
yeah,
about it.
in the for this particular recording is like written backwards.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
good. Whoa, that's a bad word.
This is a PG-13
Yeah. We didn't see anything.
Question for Felix from the chat. And reminder, if you do have any questions for any of us or about the game or about life itself and why we exist and what happens when
I
we
could go on
die.
for hours about that.
We've got the next 35 minutes to answer your questions, so please submit them through the Twitch extension or in the chat. So for Felix, when it comes to game design, what's the biggest thing players just don't understand about game mechanics? And who do you consider to be at the top of your field, whether it's a studio or an individual?
What do players not understand about game? I don't know. It's like there's a lot to it. I think like how difficult some of the stuff to pull off is. I think the joke is that like, oh, like you can just like flip the switch and suddenly something's like built for multiplayer.
Right,
or like
right.
it seems so easy to just like stick these mechanics and concepts into like entirely different like game types or genres. But like a lot of the time, like you could liken games to like these highly tuned Formula One racers. Like they're built very specifically at a very high performance level for these very specific purposes. Like you're not gonna drive a Formula One racer to like, you know, to like baseball practice on a Sunday. Like these games mechanics and designs are built very specifically for very subtle reasons in certain ways. And it's sort of like, sometimes when you're like reading the discourse online, sometimes you feel like players like maybe sometimes are like, oh yeah, like it seems like pretty applicable that you could just do this thing and be fine. And also that I guess also sometimes you see that like it's like, oh, they like there's sort of this thing of like, oh, when you look at a game you see that something's broken or something doesn't work quite right, or like you kind of find some like manipulatable thing. It's like, oh, you know, these devs like didn't foresee this thing happening. Oh, if you look to your left, the lettering is backwards.
That's cool.
Good.
Your
But, like,
commitment to typefaces.
Yeah. I might be a nerd about that. Oh, there's some creepy stuff going on. But what was I saying? It's like sometimes like you get that sense of like, oh, like they kind of overlooked this thing, but like, you know, things are built very specifically for certain reasons that, you know, I could play Control and like go through all these like things where I see like, oh, this is kind of like weird or broken, or like maybe like, you know, this wasn't thought out as well, but you know, the underlying reasons for why that's set up, the devs have probably actually already considered it. It's just that because of like time constraints or like when they needed to like do a certain thing or for another reason, like they needed to keep destructibility intact.
Right.
They had to sacrifice in other areas, and it's not that they haven't thought of it or mechanically it slipped by them, but it's just that like, yeah, there's different priorities involved with different areas of the game.
Yeah.
I've got a tangible example.
Go for it. Yeah.
So one of the classic, and I would say kind of boring answers to this is like, how do you open a door in a game? And that is so freaking complicated.
Oh my God.
Does the player interact with it? How does it open? Does the player reach and do the doorknob? Is that what happens where's the player standing? If you're standing too far back or too far forward, what happens? What if you have an AI buddy with you? Do they open it? What if there's enemies and all that? And does it stay open? Does it lock? How do you give feedback to the player when it's locked? And these are all like, just for a freaking door, you have to solve all of these.
You think that in the year of our Lord, 2020, it'd be easy for a character to walk up to a door,
But then,
move their hand towards the knob and then turn it, but that is such a complex problem, especially considering like you want the game to be responsive. You don't want to lock the player into an animation that takes forever for them to like move towards the door and all these other things. You know, it's like.
but then, so I was just in a lighting review where we're trying to get lighting to look amazing in one of our levels, and we're like, oh man, this door closes, and all this beautiful baked lighting we have inside doesn't make any sense because the door is closed now.
Right.
So now we're like going to the designer and to ask them, for aesthetic reasons, once the door is open, can we leave it open so that we don't have to like dynamically change the lighting inside, because that's extremely time consuming to do.
Yeah. Well, I think the simplest way to describe it is like the things that seem simplest are often the hardest. Like, and just the way I've observed development over time, it's just sort of like anything you think is just, you know, oh, that's just a small, easy thing. Like, it's all this interwoven, very delicately balanced, both from, you know, a design and priorities and resources perspective, but also even just like a coding perspective. Like, you know, anytime you introduce a new variable, like it could break a million other things. So it's like, you know, these seemingly simple problems or challenges can be, there's like nothing farther from the truth in a lot of cases.
But it's super fun. This is like, it's so, like my favorite part of working in video games is that kind of problem solving and finding these unanticipated things and coming up with clever solutions.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Sometimes I wonder if like the most appealing part of game development isn't like the ideas that you can generate and like, oh, it's so cool to like do this cool idea and get into a game. But it's more often than not like, I have a problem that I need to solve creatively within these constraints. Like, how do I do it? And like that for me, that's like almost like the main appeal of like making a video game is that you have like these interesting problems to solve.
And you want to solve it in a different way. You don't want to just give the player Doom again. You want to do something that the player's never seen before, because that's what creativity is about. It's not just polish. It's got to be unique.
Yeah.
Or give them really, really good Doom.
Really good Doom.
Oh no.
Now, Kat, I realize you've been battling with yourself while we've
you want me
been
to
waxing.
take over?
But
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just because you
Sorry,
haven't been able to talk.
Sorry, I just threw you into a boss fight.
yeah, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this actually, in terms of the things that maybe seem simple that aren't necessarily that.
Can we say how many bugs we have in our bug database?
No.
Probably not, right?
No.
A very
Everything's
a very good proportion of them are fixed, but the number is
Yeah.
I mean,
large.
Yeah.
I would say one of the things that I see a lot that people kind of like outside of the industry don't understand is when
Underestimate,
when people see bugs and they're like, oh, how didn't QA catch this? It's like, chances are we did.
Yeah.
And either like there was no easy solution at the stage we were at, or the solution was caused a worse problem. So
Right.
it's like there's a lot of stuff where like you'll see bugs and weird stuff in finished games, but for the most part it's a lot of people doing their jobs very, very diligently. And
Right.
just time and the nature of the beast kind of.
That transition's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you just run away?
Can I do it?
No,
Oh, okay.
I died.
Basically, you go in the mirror, the camera passes the
Oh,
mirror.
you spawned back in real life. Got it.
Yeah, so we're gonna go back to the boss fight,
Yeah.
which I'm gonna totally fail at because I'm pretty sure Kat's better at this game than I am.
I'm just-
She's like, yeah.
No. I
go
gave
the
myself a
proper
bunch
grip.
of the mods and stuff. 'Cause
Rate of fire.
Yeah.
Let's do like.
And there's like so much depth to the upgrades and mods too. Like,
Yeah.
like there's multiple mods for every weapon. There are multiple weapons that you can choose, and there are tiers for each of the mods. So it's like a really like pretty deep RPG
Yeah.
elements in that.
Oh yeah. I think I asked yesterday when we were like prepping, but I kind of want to know again, like what your guys' favorite weapon mods or abilities are in this game.
Well, I was thinking about it like when that question came up yesterday. Like I enjoy the like throw so much that I honestly totally neglected weapons. Like obviously like I was paying attention to upgrading them whenever I got like a really good upgrade, but for me it was always secondary to like just throwing stuff at people. Like it's just not only because it's all like really satisfying to do, but it's also one of the most effective ways to do crowd control in this game. You just like kind of stagger people, like you can get large swaths of enemies with like a big enough object, and in general it does a lot of damage, especially if you upgrade it enough times.
I noticed that the throw in this is a lot like, or it's analogous to a bow and arrow in a lot of other games. Like it's got that whole wind up and then aim and then release mechanic that's just very deeply satisfying.
Yeah.
And it's nice to just not have a bow and arrow, but have something
You're on
that's.
stage 2, so you probably have some health laying around somewhere from when you beat her the first time.
I like that her
there's
name
right
is
over there.
backwards
Oh,
too.
okay.
Yeah. Oh, the Phantom Justice.
nice.
Yeah. No, Waylon, to your point, I totally agree. I think the other thing I really appreciate is that there's like physics for the objects even after they make contact. So it's rather than just
nice.
exploding and going that route, like
PS3,
they
baby.
bounce off of stuff.
Yeah, and the
Just flying.
Yeah.
and the player mechanics of like being able to fly. Well, you don't get the ability to fly until later in the game, but even still, like even with all those physics, the player getting stuck is a very big concern. And how do you make sure the player doesn't get stuck? But also just not make everything super floaty, because
Right.
if you walk into that trash can, you don't want it to fly away like it's made out of helium-filled styrofoam, you want it to still feel like it has weight, and that's a difficult balancing act.
Oh gosh.
This stage of the fight was my kryptonite, absolutely. She's that move. Sorry, I should have warned you. Yeah, that move killed me so many times.
I do love the design of like the hiss version of Jessie though.
Yeah.
Like that's super cool.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
loading screens.
Yeah, that's why we're fighting her, because
My theory is
we're gonna
that-
look like that soon.
Yeah, we're gonna be cool Jesse.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah, that's cool.
So what's really weird about the loading screen is that I feel like they used a similar technique to what we used for the title screen of Last of Us, actually.
The
'Cause
original, yeah.
In the original Last of Us, they had the sort of like this macro photography of like fungus growing for like the intro to The Last of Us, where we had like kind of the opening credits. And I feel like they also used a bit of macro photography there, but this time with like fluids. So it looks really cool. You're
Yeah.
right.
And I like that it's tying into the game somehow, whether it's metaphorically or literally. And as you're playing the game, you're like, what the hell does this loading screen mean?
Yeah.
Check this out. Check this sick transition out.
It's so good.
Yeah. You know, so
That's a huge part of design too, right? Is not just saying how does it work, but how do you make it tangibly feel good?
Yeah.
yeah. That's probably like half to like most of the work is like after the initial implementation, like how do you make it like feel good? How do you make it like actually like cool to play?
And that's where I think a lot of animation comes in for sure. I don't think we've had an animator on the stream yet, so we'll have to get one on and pick their brains. So we've got a couple other questions.
Oh, I actually don't think I answered like
Who's the best?
who are some designers I really admire?
Oh,
in
right,
industry
yes, that
working?
was the second half of the question.
I actually admire a lot of like indie game designers out there, game designers / game developers. You know, dudes like Lucas Pope, who used to work here, which is really cool. He did
Return of the
Obra
Obra
Dinn, Papers, Please. Derek Yu, who's known for Spelunky and like Aquaria and the upcoming like UFO 50. My friend, I'm actually friends with Brendan Chung, who was the dev on Quadrilateral Cowboy, Gravity Bone, Atomic Atom Zombie Smasher. So like in terms of like you know, where I look for like inspiration for new and cool game design ideas, and sort of like seeing like what people can do sort of outside the sort of more like accessibility-minded AAA industry. Like AAA games are meant to be played by everyone, so you tend to go a little bit more like conservative in terms of your design, just because you want to make sure that like anybody can understand it. And games are already so complicated that like even just going that far to like make sure that like you're not doing anything too like out of left field in terms of like the design. Oh god. So I tend to look at a lot of like indie devs to like see sort of like where sort of where like I can do stuff. Cat, you're like cringing when I play this.
No, you're doing great. It's just that last stage is so hard.
Yeah.
And talking and playing.
Yeah, and talking and playing is
no
hard
easy.
too.
Right. I guess I also like Kojima because he tends to have some like really interesting player control mechanics. It's like all the fun stuff you can do in a Metal Gear Solid game or Death Stranding, like these kind of like secondary or tertiary like mechanics of like, oh, like to climb this one thing you have to do like, or to like just walk in Death Stranding is like this really cool thing. This like sort of micro loop of like engagement. Like that's really awesome.
So everyone here has been in the industry for a while, but is there anybody that if you met, whether it's a designer or somebody in the industry, like that you would like truly kind of be like stumbling over to like meet? Who would be like your celebrity, like celebrity game person? Would it be someone like a Kojima? Would it be?
Well, Kojima's visited the office.
Yeah,
And you can tell
yeah,
everybody
yeah.
was like fawning.
Just sort of like looking off.
Gosh, that's a hard one.
I only bring it up because as you were talking about it, like designers and stuff that like inspired you, I realized one of my first years here, that game company is right around the corner.
Yeah.
And I was at like the local poke restaurant, like waiting in line, and Genova Chen was in front of me, and that was like the first time working in the games industry where I was like, and my wife was with me at the time, and she was just like, "What's wrong with you?"
Oh, that's awesome.
Because Journey is one of my favorite games of all
Be
time.
cool, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, man, I've seen Genova at like the subway. Like,
It's old news at this point. Yeah. It was a big deal for me.
I know when. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go for it.
I know when they were developing, what was the underwater game they had? That game
Abzu?
company? Abzu, yes.
That's Giant Squid.
Giant
Yes.
Squid, yes, right. But a lot of people from that game company moved over to.
Matt Nava,
Yeah.
who was the art director on Journey.
Yes. So
went over there.
he actually
No, you're dying.
Yeah,
No.
no, no,
I was like, what did Matt Nava do?
What do you mean?
Matt Dad was cool.
He so I used to work in I used to work on like indie games at Johns Hopkins. I used to do like a lot of so I had a game where you controlled a dolphin, and he played that and tweeted at me being like, this dolphin's really cool. And I was like, that was my like big like I made it.
I've been noticed.
Matt Nava likes my dolphin. Like, I think he was just kind of going around like app stores, indie games, and just checking out like every kind of like underwater game and seeing how they were doing it. And yeah, it was like pretty cool.
Yeah.
When I was a little guy.
So are you gonna take another stab at this boss battle? Or are you gonna
Oh gosh,
accept
should
defeat?
I?
Yeah,
Should we?
you were doing great. You were doing way better than I was.
Let me look at some art.
Focus.
Let me look at some art and let's see how much I get killed while I'm looking at some art.
You're gonna spend the
You'll be
entire
like,
stream
"Ooh,
while I
this
was
is
Give me
beautiful.
one
Look at
more
how
time,
the-
Waylon. Just give me one more time, so
Okay.
we'll see where I end up.
Supreme
No,
focus
I believe
from
in
Felix.
you.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
can
So
totally
I'm
do
actually,
this.
I'm actually.
Let's get that cool outfit.
Let's get actually. Like,
This is
pretty
my
intense.
save, so yes, get that cool. I want.
Is that really all you get? Is this just like a side? I didn't do this one.
You
I
get
didn't do this
ability
one, no.
points
You get
and
cool
an outfit,
things.
and I think probably one of these mods.
Yeah.
I
you
don't
get,
remember what the exact.
You get like loot for most things
Yeah,
you do.
but like the boss side battles are like really juicy. You get a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple that I have not played, and I did the whole story. I just didn't do much of the kind of like extracurricular stuff afterwards, and it seems like I've missed a lot. So I'm definitely gonna have to go back to it.
Yeah, no, you should.
And
But
then-
I think the side content was probably my favorite part. Although I also saved most of it till pretty late game because getting like most of the abilities helps a lot with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think I tried to do one without like without upgrading like, levitate as much as I should have, and it was just like, no, I'll come back to this. Although I am very stubborn, so when a game's like, hey, maybe you want to level up a little bit, I'm like no.
You can't tell me what to do.
I will do this now.
Well, yeah. Well, what I find fascinating about this game is like, no matter who I talk to, there's inevitably someone who's like, "Oh, did you do this?" And I'll be like, "No," and then I'll be like, "Did you do this?" And they're like, "Oh, I missed that. What are you talking about?" And there's just so much depth to this game.
Yeah.
All right, your one attempt.
I
Felix,
wanted
you
to.
died.
Waylon, let's go look at some cool environment art, some great lighting.
The bosses are
No
very
joke.
challenging
Yeah.
in this game. I
I like the refrigerator. I
props
thought that
for
was
sure.
a fun fight.
I kept falling through the floor. I was just like, I was getting so frustrated because I would fly up and then be so like zoned into the boss that I would just like dip below the ground. I'm like, no. He had like 25 hits left.
Speaking of Kat, we've got a comment, not a question. It's greetings from an unknown friend from Insomniac saying,
No, I know who that is.
I think I do too.
so mystery to me, but known to you two.
Yeah.
Thank you for jumping in.
He's actually a former Naughty Dog QA.
Which one?
James.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey James.
Yeah. Hi,
Keep
James.
him anonymous. It's very
I
small.
mean, yeah. I have no idea who that is.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess it could be somebody else, but I'm
yeah,
pretty sure it's
yeah. They mentioned global saturation.
Yes, that's James. He actually played on his. I usually stream with him, so he played Control as his like celebratory like 24-hour stream. He was
cool.
finally like a Twitch affiliate. So,
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So he was He loved this game. He actually was the one who got it for me.
So you stream on your personal time, or
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, it's on his account, but yeah, we try to. We've done a lot of Resident Evil 5 and 6 because it's co-op, so you can kind of mess with each other, throw rocket launchers at each other. It's great.
What's not to love?
Yeah, and we did. I think. I know we played co-op for Far Cry 5. I don't know if we actually streamed. I don't remember if we actually streamed it. Yeah, a lot of stuff. We did a bunch of the Lovecraft games that came out recently. The Sinking City and Call of Cthulhu.
Yes. How were those? I was really interested in those.
I really liked them. I think I prefer Call of Cthulhu, but I'm also a sucker for the studio that did Sinking City are the guys who did the Sherlock Holmes games. And those are some of my favorite games.
Oh, with like the Phantom Watson?
Yes, with the Phantom Watson, yes. They've actually, I think of any studio that I've followed extensively.
Cool. I don't remember the layout.
Oh my gosh.
Cool art, Felix.
I think they're probably one of the studios that has grown, because basically they started with a very kind of low budget, very janky looking, kind of had a 90s point and click feel to if you've played Devil's Daughter, oh my god,
the
it looks
evolution.
gorgeous. Yeah, the evolution of that studio was really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool to witness firsthand as you're playing through. You're like, oh man, this is creepy Watson teleporting around, and then you're just like, oh well, wow, this is
Creepy Watson is actually emblematic of sort of the solution that you need for doing game issues. So you need this character. So can you explain Creepy Watson?
Yeah.
It's worth witnessing. It's worth watching a YouTube video.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, I guess. It's in
Do you want to do the Ashtray maze?
I want to say it's in Sherlock Holmes versus Arsène Lupin, I think is the one. But you're in a museum, and essentially the way the game works is you can kind of walk wherever, and Watson will be kind of next to you, but you can keep him in frame for a while and just run as far as you can away, and then if you turn the camera, he's right behind you again. So I don't know if you want to.
He's not animated.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to explain what the actual probable design philosophy behind that is.
So basically, what you want is Watson's there as a helper character. You want to be able to talk to him and interact with him, but you don't want to put in this expensive solution of navigating him around the space. Here you go, Waylon.
Oh yes, thank you.
Yeah, we found some.
This is almost a spoiler. This space is so cool. It's almost a spoiler.
It's fine.
It's been.
Spoiler
You
away.
haven't played it yet.
This
then
game launched in August. I feel like the statute of limitations is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do a
When I
cinematic
entered this
camera.
environment, though, I spent probably the first 15 minutes just PS4 sharing everything. I was
Oh,
screen
Looking at
cap.
it, yeah.
It's so beautiful.
This is just incredible. Good job, everybody, if you're
Yeah.
listening. And if you're not listening,
Salutes.
good job
Hats
anyway.
off, Remedy.
Yep.
Hats off, literally.
And also, this is an example. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go
I'm
for
just gonna. Actually, I'm gonna get really good at that. Every time you're about to say something cool, I'm gonna cut you off with something cooler.
Sorry, Felix,
but
yeah.
actually topical. That's not Creepy Watson. Go watch Creepy Watson. This is an example of a scene like what I was talking earlier, where they had an idea for a space, like this massive quarry.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like the antithesis of everything else they're doing in all their corridor combat. And
Very
this
open.
is extremely striking. The corridors are beautiful, but yeah, it gets a little claustrophobic after a while. And the pacing of when this shows up in the story is just perfect to wow you with this spectacle.
Yeah, so if you didn't get a good look at it at the beginning, if you look up at the ceiling, you just have this expansive universe-scape that is supposedly in the basement of this building.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah, you're shocked when you come into this.
Yeah.
And the destructibility is a lot less intricate here. I'm still able to just pull rocks out of the ground, but they kind of just barely leave a decal, if anything at all. So it's kind of just the bare basics. It's enough to get by without feeling strange. I can't pull anything off of this. I can't damage it. But the trade-off was you get this spectacle.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't break the rules of their destructibility, but it does bend them for what's the thing that's supposed to really grab you.
I'd be interesting. Do you have launch fully upgraded? Because I know you can. There's a the last launch power you can get is moving much bigger stuff.
I don't know if I have it fully upgraded. I have it pretty highly upgraded. And
Possibly this area could become even more destructible.
Yeah. Well, there's that, and then I think in the course
this
of
all
the
looks like it's destructible. Just me. My gut
denting
tells me
it.
that looks like dynamic.
Yeah.
This looks like all these large rock structures look like they're custom sculpted for this moment and probably
Yeah.
don't break.
Well,
ultimate
and you
damage.
have this, entity approaching you, which is,
Yep.
Not bad.
Be
I'm gonna
careful.
run
He's
away.
but
These are so
he's
cool.
not friendly.
in the progression of the when you get to this space in the core story, it's actually a pretty crazy combat environment with like
Yes.
multiple enemies. So
Yes.
like, talking about prioritization of resources and like what they're able to accomplish with the tech that they have is like pretty astounding when you experience this level in the primary story, because it's just there's objects floating around. These got all these
Yeah,
different
these guys are
enemies.
attractors, so they just like attract these physics objects around them.
Yeah.
Like
And stylistically,
random
Yeah.
things.
it's so
pretty cool.
consistent.
Move
Like
them
the way
around.
that
You
they
can't
look
kill
and
them
move
yet.
is the same as the way your gun looks and moves.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
really, same styling as the rocks here, and in the fiction, it's all kind of related too.
Yeah.
They've
He's
done such
coming
a
for
good
you,
job to
though.
build
Yeah, the art direction in this game
I'm
is
moving, I'm moving.
particularly strong.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at the environments is very obvious.
Well, there's a difference between art direction and execution,
Right,
and this
exactly.
game nails it absolutely on both of those. It's like, look how freaking beautiful this view is right now. The speck highlights off of the rock, the lighting, the atmosphere, the fog silhouetting everything. Like, even though it's dark and I can't really, it's black stone. That's such a hard thing to deal with. Uncharted 4, we had a level that was supposed to be igneous rock, and it was such a pain to light it. But the fact that they've done this all, like, you're only seeing fog and reflections. You're not seeing the surfaces themselves.
Well,
and
I-
you never have trouble navigating.
And I wonder, like, like if it was a conscious choice to make the enemies or the entities that are chasing you flash like that to kind of help illuminate the space and like draw attention to them. Like,
Oh, that's
Every enemy illuminates like the
Yeah.
space. Like
Yeah.
even the regular enemies with their like sort of red outcasts.
Yeah.
Like, it's
See,
like
this is a
helping you sort of
non-shadow,
see them.
non-shadow casting light. You can see it's leaking through to the wall back here,
Oh yeah.
which is, as a player, totally fine. Like,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
feels
And
like it's
It's
just
creepy.
in the
It's,
space.
it's supernatural.
yeah.
But that's what makes this cheap,
Yeah. Yes.
comparatively.
Yeah.
But then this one is a shadow casting light, or it probably has some baked-in shadows or something. So there's just not just leaking through every surface.
Do you have a shadow right now?
Do I have a shadow? I should. Right here.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
you
you
do.
do.
There
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. Right. I cast it. You also have like a little cookie underneath you, like. Of,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that
looks
stuff
like it.
goes such a long way to.
or is that just that's just the reflection though? isn't
Yeah, it,
It
might
might
just
be.
be the reflection.
The
Ooh,
reflective
so
environments
good.
are so good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably that. They have such good screen space reflections in this game. It's like they have baked-in reflections too. Screen space reflections aren't a perfect tech, but really in modern games, honestly, even going to be true in the next generation of games, that's the only way you can get on-screen effects and dynamic stuff to reflect. We still bake in as much as we possibly can. We still pre-calculate stuff as much as we can because it's cheaper and it leaves budget for other stuff. But
Yeah.
to get like the reflection of that light off the puddle while still what's this creature called? Do they even name it?
It's
I don't
like.
remember. Anyway,
I
don't
to get
remember,
it
yeah.
reflecting in the floor is, yeah, you got to do something showing dynamically what's on the screen.
Yeah, this environment is like staggering, and the combat encounter originally was pretty challenging. I spent a lot of time in here trying to find my way out or battle my way out.
I do like that the guys who are down there attracting stuff do not have any affiliation to the Hiss. So when the Hiss is in there, they're also like,
Battling or
What's
or,
up?
There's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple
Come at me.
factions in this game.
Yeah.
It's like very interesting how
Yeah.
there's like multiple different enemy.
I think back,
Factions.
circling back to when I was asking about like favorite gun stuff, I think one of my favorite abilities is the like mind control one, where you can just like turn one enemy and have
Yes.
him go fight his friends.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for that in games, so
It's such a cool effect
Yeah.
too. Like
Which-
it's,
Yeah.
it's like throbbing
Yeah.
like thing on the enemy, and they're just like gone crazy, and then it's suddenly they turned and like the UI changes. It's like
Yep.
really nice and communicates very well.
yeah.
Well, and speaking of like, how you prioritize and allocate resources, like, having an optional upgradable skill that, changes the AI behavior and the look of the like an NPC character that you select at random.
It's really
him.
funny. You could
Go
easily
get
imagine.
him.
Yeah,
No, not me.
sick him. It's like the Left Behind moment of like sicking
Yeah.
the infected on
Exactly.
enemy NPCs.
Wait, they're not fighting each other now. You guys are
No, they are.
liars.
Yeah, he's firing at it.
Yeah.
He does
Oh, yeah.
not like it, but that guy's more interested than you.
Yeah,
Well,
you take priority.
You're tastier.
It's my sweatpants.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, when they creep up on you, it's
terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, just hanging out.
Yeah.
What is that effect of like the sort of this like shimmering like
Yeah, how would you describe that?
shimmering like oil like on water pattern?
Yeah, that's how I would describe it. Like a water pattern.
Nailed it.
No, it
First
looks.
try.
Oops. It looks like it's.
You have to like.
Yeah, if you throw something, it'll
yeah.
destruct
I'm
it.
trying to talk and
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you
at the
go.
same
Yeah.
time, and not as
Yeah.
good as Felix at this. Yeah, it looks like it's an oil on water pattern, but it's also trying to simulate like a chromatic aberration, like
Yeah.
when you get.
Yeah.
It's like localized chromatic aberration, which
Yeah.
is really interesting.
Which again, going within the theme of the universe and multiple parallel worlds overlapping and all that, it really feels like it's like a rift into the next world. and
Yeah.
showing how it's distorting light. I mean, I think they probably just took either like a photo or pre-rendered
It's just a
oil
card.
on water or something like that.
Right.
It's probably a card with some distortion animation on it. But
Oh.
they've.
You killed a guy.
Did it?
Yeah.
It died?
I think he
Somebody
might have
died.
died and triggered the dialogue.
Oh,
Or-
okay.
But maybe you didn't kill
Or
him.
did the...
Maybe that guy killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably that.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah,
Teamwork.
good
There's
dog.
the
Yeah.
dream work.
Thanks, Robert. By the way, sometimes when you're actually a game developer and there's a bug and a character's rig gets all screwed up, they just look like this.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
kinda
Like you'll be
sorry.
Nathan Drake hanging out with Elena and their faces will be exploding like this. And it's,
All over the
character bugs are the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Character
They're
issues
very
are
good.
hilarious.
Yeah, the's hours of highlight
Not if you're a
reels.
character artist, though. If you're a character artist, then it's like
Yeah,
worse than
that's
the
like-
wolf. But you know, for the other devs, it's like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody else play a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this,
I'm
they
gonna
launched a challenge
silent
mode,
now.
I think, in December for this. And then there's 2 known expansions. I think the first one comes out next month.
so,
And
yeah.
then
I'm
there's
pretty
like,
excited.
later this year, there's we were talking about it a little bit, but the Alan Wake connective expansion. We don't know what that is, but I think they said mid-2020 is when that's coming out.
Someone on the narrative or writing team or creative direction team is like really obsessed with like wordplay because the Alan Wake expansion is called the Alan Wake Experience or Alan Wake Expansion, so it's
Yeah.
AWE.
Yeah.
But it also coincides with the acronym for these events in the game lore called Altered World Events. And then apparently, like, well, spoilers, but like, Altered World Events have something to do with like the Alan Wake game itself, as explained in Control. So like, they just, it's just like these connections just everywhere.
Yeah, I love the idea of like almost sort of like an MCU quality, like kind of connected
Cinematic universe,
like,
the
where-
Remedy cinematic
Yeah,
universe.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Because I think they drop a few Quantum Break references too on like
Yeah.
random whiteboards in this game. Yeah.
So if no one has any objections, I was gonna go try to see if I could do mushroom stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna
Sure.
say, fall in the hole.
Do mushroom stuff? Yeah, mold, that's right.
Well, we are creeping up on noon, so I want to make sure it's
Oh.
okay with you if you spend the time. If anyone has stuff to do, don't feel afraid to say so. Otherwise, we can keep going.
I'm good.
What about the
We can
team
do stuff
behind the
with friends.
cameras? Everybody good? Cool. All right,
Yay.
let's
So
go find some
enthusiastic,
mold.
So there's a side mission that I think you picked up, but it's like you get to do all of the janitor's chores. And one
The
of them
janitor.
Oh, yeah.
one of them
by
is
the way.
talking to all the plants in the research department. So
Oh.
yeah, so occasionally I'll just run by this plant and it'll be like, oh hey, let's have a conversation, and then it perks up.
Yeah, you talk
It's
to
a
plants
cute
in this
little-
game. It's
Yeah.
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
The janitor, by the way,
Ati.
Ati is
Ati,
the best.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could just listen to him talk.
I think we were talking about who our favorite character was, and
Mm-hmm.
I still maintain that I really like the mold lady.
Because she just
She's-
obsesses about mold.
She's just very like, she's that like kind of vaguely British like professor that you had at one point. Who's just like absolutely no nonsense and like, I don't care about whatever you're doing upstairs. I have my research.
Yeah.
This is the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
Therefore.
The world could be collapsing. But,
Exactly.
Mold.
Yeah. No. Mold.
Also, her name is Underhill.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
basement. It's like,
Yeah.
so good.
Also, the costume design in this game is
Yeah.
fantastic.
It is
I
spot
like a lot
on,
of the
yeah.
character designs in here.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any. Okay, so we still have to find all the samples.
Who is like the person who helps you the most, like kind of your assistant? What's her
Emily
name?
Pope.
Emily Pope.
Yeah.
Her shirt, like I want to buy her shirt because it's very clean cut. Like it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no. So we already picked up the thing. I guess I can talk to her if we want, but.
Dr. Underhill, if you please.
And I like that they're
Yeah,
designing.
see, she's like, not Rhea.
That's Doctor.
I didn't study at Oxford for 6 years.
Exactly.
Just for you to call me Rhea. But yeah, Ati the janitor
Yeah,
is...
I think he was like everybody's favorite.
Yeah. The thing about Ati is, so he's this very like, he's this older gentleman who's like very no nonsense, just wants to do his job. And he's very mysterious for whatever reason, because he just pops up everywhere in the game.
Yeah.
But what's really great about Ati is that he's like super markedly Finnish.
Yeah.
Like he'll just like kind of randomly just start talking in Finnish, like, and like just essentially like old man, like just start complaining about stuff in Finnish. And then also like he'll use these like incredibly weird metaphors that I'm sure are like metaphors in Finnish, but do not translate at all to English. And it's really great. So Remedy is a Finnish company.
Yeah.
You know, one of the several Finnish game developers in Finland. Finnish game developers in Finland. Yeah. Totally checks out. But you know, all their games like take place like essentially in America. So Max Payne is like this really hard-boiled New York story.
Right.
Quantum Break is set in I believe America. Alan Wake is in the Northwest.
Yeah.
And Control's in New York. And so, you know, for like maybe like the first time they're able to kind of flex their sort of like, hey, like here's our like, you know, we're Finnish, like here's our Finnish character.
Well, Tomas, the director of communications over there, when he came by the studio, he was explaining that the performer who plays Ati is actually like a famous
is he?
Finnish actor.
Oh, cool.
That's so cool.
I was afraid you were going to say he's actually American.
Yeah.
No.
He's from the Bronx.
Yeah.
But no, like apparently he's a really well-known Finnish actor, and it was
That's awesome.
Like,
You can tell because Ati is just so, he's very compelling, even in his like small comedic role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you can kind of pick up on like the notoriety of his likeness, because I think when he's introduced, there's like this very dramatic cinematic where he, like it kind of
He's
turns
like
his
in
head,
shadow.
and then it turns around like and you're like, so if you're Finnish or you know his work, like you're gonna be like, oh, hello.
Yes.
He's like he gets different treatment in this game too than a lot of the other characters. I think than any other character.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of, as far as NPCs go, he fills a different role in the universe, both gameplay-wise, but also, yeah, like.
There are lore reasons.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like
There's lore,
he's distinct.
Oh. I'm trying to find health. Oh, thank you.
There's a really great bit in this game, like spoiler for this really hilarious thing that I thought was hilarious. It was the funniest thing in the game for me, where she's like, your character Jesse Faden's talking to another character about Ati, and the security guard. The security guard's like, oh yeah, Ati, yeah, he's my like break room buddy. Like we go to break room all the time. And they're kind of like talking about like, oh yeah, he's like kind of a strange like foreign dude. And then your internal monologue as the character is like, I guess he's like Swedish or something. And I was like, oh, they're totally taking the piss. Like it's so great.
That's good.
Yeah, like so like shout out to Remedy for having like these hilariously dry jokes that like probably only I appreciate. I don't know. I hope not, because I thought it was amazing.
You got like no scoped.
I did.
Oh yeah, those
Sorry
like
about
mold
that.
dudes are like very harsh.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes they are. That's kind of why I wanted to.
Stop being such a wuss. Just don't give me the controller.
That's kind of why I wanted to go down there, because it's like a like kind of bit of a harder encounter. I don't know about you guys, but I thought the mold people were like probably because they have a incredibly strong close range attack, because they just like vomit at you. So you don't want to get them close, but then they can also like sharpshooter you from a
with like
distance.
high velocity too. It's hard to dodge it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you pretty much can. I feel.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna actually try to. Do we have the? Oh, we don't have.
As you can see, I very much prioritize certain things.
Yeah.
I realized
so you do actually have full.
I think
full launch
Scott
upgrade.
might have skipped like the shield mission.
Yeah. What's
I
up?
re-
Should we go get the shield?
I realized I really turtle. You were asking like, what's your favorite weapon and stuff. I totally turtle in this game, but I never use the shield. I just like duck behind cover and then like pop out, throw something, pop out, wait for my energy to recover.
Yeah.
And that's how I get done, which is probably not the most fun way to play, which
I feel
is
like,
all on me.
You know, in so far much as like people can theorize about like the proper way to play a video game.
Yeah.
I will say that Control heavily emphasizes like mobility over like over like sort of hanging back kind of cover shooter like kind of philosophy.
Yeah, you get kind of always have to be in motion.
Right.
Yes.
It actually brought me a lot back to sort of our philosophy. Another third-person game, Uncharted 4, where like we actually were also like, you got to be very mobility forward. Like you're like swinging your rope everywhere. You're like dodging and rolling and like going from cover to cover. Like in Uncharted 4, we also sort of like had the similar philosophy of like, you always have to be on the move, like be very aggressive with like your playstyle. Because if you just stick around, it's kind of like,
You're like cheesing
people can have fun like doing that sort of playstyle. But like for us, we were like hoping that the optimum fun would be had by you like going everywhere. It's cool, whatever.
Well, and we did things like
Sorry.
I think you can also, can't you also shoot them to like
You
activate
can,
them? Yeah.
you can, but why shoot when you could throw it at a
Exactly.
dude?
That, see, I feel noticed. Thank you.
And this is so that's stuff in our game design of like, you know, the enemies flank you and do it really
Yeah.
well. And
Right.
that
The
gets you out of cover.
grenades
Yeah.
are pretty much entirely just to get you to move. Like,
Even a lot of our cover in Uncharted 4 was destructible, not all of it, but a lot of it, and that gets you to get out of your spot.
Yeah.
And Control has a lot of those same mechanics of enemies who are specifically designed to get you out of cover.
Right.
Take on your
They
brother.
flank
And then I
you.
duck right back into the cover, but you know, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
they're doing the best.
We appreciate the effort.
they have
And I don't
flying
know why,
enemies
it's
that
just
have
this
a
game. I
better
don't do
line
that in
of
every
sight.
game. It's just
Yeah.
a bad habit I developed in this game.
It's acceptable. Like, you know,
No, kill your brothers.
no one should
Don't
ever
just
let
dance
you
in front. No.
My
just fall off
son.
the cliff.
My buddy.
Yeah.
He tried.
My boy.
He tried. My son. My mushroom or my
Molder.
mold son.
Please,
Well,
Molten was my fault.
Well, this I think really highlights the breadth of environments too. Like,
Yes. Yeah, like this is so different from what we were just in and what we were in before.
right.
Then, and
But it feels so cohesive too. Like it doesn't feel like, oh, they're just like, oh, we wanted to do like a moldy environment. It's like, no, this seems like a natural evolution of like the entire mythos of the game, but also just the art direction and style.
Yeah, they still have the same elements of like the
Very
heavy
blocky.
atmosphere, the bold cyan and green and red colors, which they
Yeah.
don't overuse. Like they mix it up enough, but yeah, I mean it's still like, take the characters out of it, you can still tell this is Control.
Right.
Whereas not every video
hi,
game,
buddies.
like it'll just be some random screenshot of some random corridor, and you're like, I don't know if this.
Yeah. What
if
is this? Yeah. Yeah.
And it can be beautifully executed, but it doesn't have the style. This
Yeah.
has execution and style.
If you see a hallway
Gentlemen?
that's like made of concrete, that's blocky, and got great reflection and rendering, that's Control, 100%.
That's Control.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of those games I think of the last few years where it's like no matter what frame, no matter what like
I apologize for
screenshot,
choosing
you
these
know
numbers.
exactly what it is.
So here's one of the. May I actually?
Yes.
For a second? So here's one of
Go
the
get me
things.
some
Don't leave them
where,
there.
no, it's. I just want to point something out. So here's one of the things where like. Okay. So if you get close enough to this wall, I think you actually can block your shot. So with third-person games, because of the way the camera's positioned like over your shoulder. Like at times, like your character where their arm is, they can actually like clip into like geometry or face geometry. And in that case, like the bullet has to follow from the gun to where the reticle is pointing, the reticle target, which in itself is like very complex. So Aaron Daly, one of like the lead multiplayer designer here at Naughty Dog, he actually like pointed this out to me with like several other games, and sort of like we got into a discussion about sort of like how do third-person games like solve this? Pretty like you could go either way on this in terms of like, oh, like instead of like following the bullet from the gun to the reticle, you should just have the bullet launch from like the center of the screen where the reticle is all the way to the reticle. But if you want to be realistic, you want to like have the shot blocked. PUBG does a really interesting solution to this where PUBG will actually show you where the bullet will intersect on geometry using a UI element, and as you back away, it'll like kind of align with the reticle as soon as the bullet path is like unblocked. So this is one of the things that like you think about a lot that maybe like you wouldn't think about otherwise if you weren't like doing active game development.
Yeah. Well, in the case of PUBG, I think they have bullet drop and bullet physics, right?
That
as well,
too,
which
yeah,
is
yeah,
a whole
yeah.
nother variable.
Oh, yeah.
It's
That's
like,
an entirely different beast.
yeah, which like again, going back to what some of the stuff we were originally talking about, a very like tightly knit, delicate balance of systems and mechanics that in many cases can be like a house of cards. Like you can't really pull one piece without affecting everything else.
Isn't that the one that killed you last time?
It is.
You gotta be careful.
Get vengeance.
I know.
You kill it.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but he definitely has a brother.
Yeah.
Holiness had the nemesis system.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I think
Is there anyone else?
Question mark? Anybody
Go
else
get that
wanna
health.
come?
Yeah. I'm
Oh,
really
oh,
anxious.
Oh, nope. Somebody's.
I just love how just there. So yeah, there's just
Where
a
are
random
you?
desk there
Oh,
that
there he is.
extends out of the cover, and yeah, of course, if you shoot it, like a bunch of paper flies out, looking really cool.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, and
Wait.
everybody's.
Those drawers are physicalized. You can like move the drawers. Wow. Oh my god. Ugh. Game of the year.
Yeah. It definitely is one of my top 10, or even like top 3 of last year for sure. Cool. Well, I think that about does it for this week. Thank you for all the thoughtful discussion, everybody. I learned a lot. I hope everyone watching learned as well. You made some great progress on my save, so I thank you. I really appreciate that. We'll
A
have
new
to.
control point for you.
Oh yeah.
Did we
Good
actually?
end.
Wait, we unlocked. We beat the. Did he beat the boss? No, we ran away.
No,
right?
No, we
yeah.
ran
I was
away.
gonna say, we just forgot to put it on the cool.
You know,
outfit.
it's
have
like
to get that cool
classic
outfit.
boss strategy. You gotta go down
Yeah.
a gigantic hole and find the bottom. and-
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know.
We're training. This is our training montage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To go back and fight her.
Yeah. Once stream's over, we'll just keep going. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have anything.
And
to
then you can
make
just
or
share on the
anything.
Twitter the new outfit you get.
Yeah. Just look at how good I
Like
look.
3 days from now.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. Hope to have you back. Hopefully it was a good time for you as well. And thank you to everybody for sharing your awesome questions. Led to some really thoughtful conversation. So yeah, this week was Control. Next week we've got another Game of the Year contender for the DICE Awards coming up next week. It's Untitled Goose Game. So we're gonna have a honkin' good time. I will not apologize.
Couldn't let him just have it.
I mean, yeah.
I thank you for all of the support. My incredible colleague Dina Bakir will be back in the hosting chair, joined by some special guests. They're going to solve the mysteries of the Untitled Goose Game. Thanks again to Remedy for all of your support for this stream. Hopefully we did your game justice. We love it very, very much, and we can't wait to see what's coming with the future expansions and whatever else the future holds for your studio. Much love to all of you.
Control's awesome.
Control is
Thank you so
incredible. So, as a reminder, after next week's stream on the 19th, we have a special charity stream, which we're very excited about. We're going to have some more details about it in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for more details on that. And otherwise, we will see you next week with Goose Game. See ya.
You called me. So here I am.
I see that look in your eyes.
Things change when you become director.
Makes me go blind.
Something's coming.
Deep
Something unbelievable.
and eyes.
Unknowable.
Storm in the quiet.
Chaos of biblical proportions.